Hello everyone, we are now on week 7 of our course map of this subject. So week 7 is entitled Stages of Faith Development. By the way, week 6 is our exam week. So that's why we have week 7 as our first coverage for midterm. So this topic is entitled The Stages of Faith Development by James Fowler. So who is James Fowler? He is a professor of theology and human development at Emory University. He identified 7 stages or types of faith which tend to emerge as individuals grow and mature. This professor is heavily influenced by the following psychologists, namely Erik Erikson, John Piaget, and Michael Kohlberg. He was also influenced by some theologians of his time. So this is what I am going to share with you. As an introduction, you will find in the screen that there are different types of or levels of spiritual awareness. For us Christians and even other people of other religions, perhaps recognize that there are different types or levels of spiritual awareness. The bishops in the US, in their pastoral letter entitled Our Hearts Were Burning Within Us, they explain that faith is living and active, sharing many of the qualities of living things. It grows and develops over time. It learns from experiences. It adapts to changing conditions while maintaining its essential identity. It goes through seasons, some apparently dormant, others fruitful. So this is also true with our faith. So indeed, faith is a virtue that completes a person. So these stages describes person's life's journey. Now let us talk one by one the stages of faith development. Now the first stage is what we call primal faith. So this is dominant in infants from birth to age 2 or 3. In this stage, a young child's faith formation sets the foundation for what will later develop as a conscious, intentional, and personal faith. So what is crucial in this stage is the concept of trust. How this trust is built by constant nurture of parents, particularly parents, the significant others. So a young child cannot be said to have any conscious faith at all, but he or she is unconsciously developing a basic attitude about reality, a perception about whether the world and the people in it are basically friendly or dangerous, pleasant or painful, trustworthy or capricious. So this stage establishes a fundamental but preconscious dispositions which will eventually enable the child to believe that there is a God who loves and cares for them. So unconsciously, the child would eventually develop the faith depending on the nurture of his or her parents. Now let us proceed to stage 2. It is called imaginative faith. So this is around 3 to 6 years old. Okay. In this or at this stage, faith has a magical or imaginary quality. It is marked by the child's ability to believe almost anything. So it is essentially intuitive, non-rational, and non-conceptual. It is based on what the child feels rather than on what the child thinks or knows. So it is in a sense borrowed from adults whom the child trusts to be knowing and truthful. So this stage sets the foundation for the child's eventual ability to believe in non-material realities and sacred mysteries which cannot be seen or proven. So the strong imagination of a child, his imaginative faith is almost entirely non-critical and naive. So children for the most part lack the knowledge, experience and insight to evaluate or judge the content of faith against objective criteria. So in this stage, the child's image of God depends primarily on what parents do and say. So they start to imitate. So mahilig og imitate ang bata ani nga idara. So kung say nakita niya sa iyang mga parents, kung iyang mga parents loving, caring, forgiving, then the child would assume that God is also like his parents or grandparents, who is also loving, caring and forgiving. Okay, so that is also what the faith in this stage is all about. Now let us proceed to stage 3. This is called literal. At this stage, the child already developed the formal operational thinking. So this is dominant in children ages 6 to 12. During this stage, the child is gradually developing the ability to think for herself or himself and beginning to ask questions about things which earlier they took for granted, including their parents' faith. So at this stage, children develop an intense desire and need to know how things really are. So they are already started to be curious, and they are fascinated by stories, rituals, and traditions which show real people living out their faith in concrete ways. So that's the characteristics of those children at this stage. So they depend on authority figures, rules, and structures to assure them that reality is ordered and safe. So literal faith is the excuse me, first step towards a less naive and more critical attitude towards faith. Although the older child's ability to subject the content of faith to critical standards is still limited. So kani kay kuana kay kani concrete, you started to observe what people are doing in the church and what people are believing in God. So in this stage, the child is like to imagine God as something like a divine superhero who uses his power and authority to create order and justice by rewarding good and punishing evil. That's stage 3. Now let us proceed to stage 4. It is called conventional faith. So this is dominant in young adults, ages 13 and to 20. So during this stage, faith is shaped by the individual's growing ability and desire to participate in the wider world beyond parents and families. Extended na nimo adere ang mga imong friends. No? There is developing need to belong and be accepted by peers and friends who share the individual's interest and values. So dire makadevelop na ka og kaning sense of conforming. Kung unsay gihimo sa imong mga barkada, kung imong mga barkada kay nisimba, so madalasad ka, no? So faith is highly interpersonal, institutional and communal. Like the older child, it is rooted in the group and is shaped by the conventions, traditions, rules, and habits of the group or faith community to which